Welcome back. I am so grateful to get to do this show because there are certain individuals that I get to reach out to. The people who have written me back that I never thought would write me back that are coming on the show in the future, I'm very excited about. But none more excited than I am today. Actually nervous, because this woman right here has been a mentor to me and several other people. She has an incredible story, a story almost too incredible to believe. This is Karen the Supertrader, Karen Bruton. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee. At one point, she was managing a $242 million retail hedge fund as a retail trader. For those of you who understand hedge funds, you understand how incredibly impossible that is. She was turning incredible returns. We're going to talk about that, her trading, but she's also, she founded Just Hope International, where they help people in third world countries, Central America and Africa. She's actually helped with cash crops in certain countries so that the people can get on their feet and be able to have an income with pineapples and different kinds of stuff like that. An incredible amount of philanthropy work. She just wrote a book called The Lamb of Wall Street, where she goes through her entire story, including some troubles that she had with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And this is the first time I'm very excited to have Karen to come on and tell her full story. So welcome from Nashville, Tennessee. It's Karen Bruton. Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm thankful to be on your show.
I'm thankful to have you on here, Karen. So it's really crazy. So back, man, it must have been 2013, 2014. I started watching videos of you. There's a video you guys can look right now. It's got about 1.3 million views on Tasty Trades YouTube channel, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Karen the Supertrader. And I didn't get to meet Karen personally face to face until the summer of 2019. And she has for those of you who, we'll get into this a little bit more, but she's a premium seller. She sells options. For those of you who understand things like different types of market structures or bond, arbitrage or stuff like that, or long short funds, she is an option seller. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into that. You started with options back in 2003. You were a fundamental trader and then switched to becoming a technical trader.
Yes.
Can you talk about your initial? Initially you took a course for $22,000. You got into the whole 3 green arrows up, 3 red arrows down. Can you talk about how you got started there?
I just got an Invest Tools course, and I was monitored every week. I was called every week, and if I didn't pass that weekly part of the learning tool, I had to take it over. So I studied. It took me about little over year and a half up to 2 years to pass that course. It was 4 books, and I studied diligently every week, and I passed the course.
So here's a question. So I have a business degree from UT Austin. I use almost nothing I learned from that business degree. There was one day in my finance class we went over options, and I had a statistics class from the natural science college. Those are the only things that I use in my life today. From that course that you paid $22,000 for, how much of it ended up being relevant information that helped you make money?
It ended up being all relevant information.
Okay.
Because I learned from taking that course that I wanted to do this and I didn't want to do that. And I wanted to do this and I didn't want to do that. So I developed into an options trader from that course.
What was the thing that made you switch? And this is a big thing that's happened for a lot of people, because a lot of people are on Robinhood right now. What is the thing that I don't know if you know, but across the entire financial spectrum, people are switching over to derivatives from regular equities in massive amounts. What is the thing that caused you to go from stocks to stock options?
Well, I own 2 stocks. Apple was one of them.
Yeah, and Elon Pharmaceuticals.
And Elon Pharmaceuticals. And I owned Apple when the CEO of that company, the founder of that company, got online and said he had cancer.
So yeah, Steve Jobs saying that he had stage 4.
Steve Jobs.
Well, at the time it wasn't stage 4. He went into remission, came back, and then that's when, the stock dropped. Yeah.
And that's when I lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then Elon Pharmaceuticals, they were in Ireland, and I was making a lot of money off of them. And the announcement came out that their treasurer was stealing from them. And that stock dropped rapidly. So I lost a lot of money between Apple and Elon Pharmaceuticals. And I just wanted to find another way to trade.
So this is, at this point, you're using fundamental analysis to decide which stocks to choose, but you don't know, there's no way for you to know, even from as a fundamental researcher, that that Steve Jobs is going to end up with pancreatic cancer, and there's no way for you to know that their CFO is stealing money from them. So fundamental analysis becomes a bit problematic. Whereas, and I talked to Tom Sosnoff about this, and we're going to talk about Tom later. There was an asymmetry of information back in the 50s and 60s and 70s when, well, it was the 60s, 70s, 80s when Warren Buffett first started. So I think fundamental analysis was actually viable back then, because you could actually hire a private investigator, or you could actually have access that the general public didn't have to certain companies. The internet has completely changed that. And if you notice, Berkshire Hathaway's edge has sort of gone away because of that. So I think that I see what you're saying with fundamental analysis, how it makes it different, just because there's going to be conversations between, Elon Musk and whoever that we're not privy to. So the fundamental analysis is somewhat flawed in that way. Now, here's the thing. Here's the golden goose, Karen. Here's the thing everyone wants to know, right? You start off your initial trade, when you initially start trading stock options, and we'll get into the techniques there. In 2011, you start with 1.3 million. By the end of the year, you wanted a few more investors, but you ended up with 42 million at the end of the first year in investments. How did that happen?
Yes, all of I didn't want to start trading for anybody.
Yeah.
But my friends came and asked me how much money I was making. And I told them, and they said, well, can you invest some of my money? And it just built up through that. It built and built and built and built.
So Karen, I've done 11%, I've done 26%, I've done 36%. And last year I did 47%. What did you do? What did your friends hear that made them want to give you all this money? What were the numbers you were giving them?
I was averaging between 20 and 25%.
Okay.
But my big year was 54%.
You made 54%. I remember you mentioned this. At this point, we're doing naked short puts in SPX.
SPX.
Yes.
I cover them now.
Right. Right. So they're defined now, but at the time we're doing naked short puts in SPX, and you're trying to collect a certain amount of credit, right? You're not looking for a certain delta. I know I don't mean to lose some of the people in the audience. We'll get back to what this means, but right at this point you're selling puts below the market at a certain point to collect a certain amount of premium. Sometimes we've talked about $2, $3 per contract, something like that.
Well, and I describe myself as the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
I'm the tortoise.
Yeah.
And I beat the hare every time.
That's right. Slow and steady. All right. So you're telling them these returns 25%. At some point we go from 42 million to $242 million. Okay.
Yes.
How much of that is investment? How much of that are returns that you're getting?
Well, I don't know that number. I averaged 20 to 25% every year.
Yeah.
My lowest year, I made 11%.
Okay.
But that was a tough year. So I never lost money.
Okay. Now that's really important.
Investors.
That's really important for a lot of people who are watching this, because one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, Karen, because we're going to talk about the SEC complaint later. It is very important to understand that in the years regarding the SEC complaint, 2014, 2015, 2016, you did not lose money for any of your investors. Is that a true statement?
That's true.
Okay, so you understand the narrative out there right now. If you guys go and Google Karen, they're going to say that she had massive losses in February 2014. The fact of the matter is, in all three of those years, her investors were not only made whole, they actually made money. So we're going to get back to that in a little bit, but I wanted to answer that question first, because a lot of people, especially a lot of tasty traders, had this question that you did not lose anyone's money. So let's go back a little bit further. You're actually not from Nashville. You're from Kannapolis, North Carolina.
Annapolis, North Carolina.
And you go into the book.
I'm a Tar Heel.
You are a
I'm
Tar Heel. You are a Tar Heel at heart, right? So we go into the book. You actually have some quotes from Michael Jordan in the book, which is funny because Tom is actually friends with Michael Jordan. He talked about gambling, playing poker with him for like 15 years. Can you talk about what was it like growing up in the South? There's two things you kind of cover that I thought were really interesting. Your upbringing, kind of a humble upbringing, but also civil rights and misogyny. Those things that you had to deal with growing up as a woman in the South back in the 1950s and 60s.
Well, I was raised very poor, but I didn't realize I was raised that way.
Right.
We had a garden and we ate out of our garden. It was just a happy childhood. And then I was graduating from high school, and I asked my counselor, where can I apply to college? And she said, oh, you need to be a secretary. And I ignored her. and my mother and father couldn't afford to send me to college.
Yeah.
So, and I applied for a lot of scholarships, and most of those scholarships were given to men.
Yeah.
There were very few of them given to women. But I got scholarships, I got loans, and I worked my way through college. So I paid for every dime of it.
That's incredible. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about this. So your guidance counselor tells you, hey, we want you to be a secretary. And at the time, now you went to go back to be a secretary. Was this before or after UNC?
I worked for just did a friend a favor.
Right.
That I worked as a secretary to cover her loss.
Yeah.
She was absent for
right.
a couple of months.
Right. Now, there are some other issues that were kind of crazy. The first one to me was it the guy at Wachovia that was asking you the question about before he hired you? Can you go over what that was?
He asked me, I went into his office and he asked me, I carried my resume, and he asked me, are you planning to have a baby anytime soon? And I said, no. And he said, well, I can't hire a woman and she get pregnant in 2 months. So I thanked him for his time, and I just got up and walked out.
Yeah, the way you write it in the book is he leans over to you, like whispers, and he goes, when are you planning on getting pregnant? That's what he said to you. So, I mean, the assumptions there were pretty magnificent, right? He assumed that, you would automatically, as a woman growing up in the South, just get pregnant in your, teens or early 20s, right? Your experience at UNC, what was that like?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm a distinguished alumni now.
Yeah.
I got chosen as a distinguished alumni because I've worked all over the world.
Yeah.
And they take very good care of me.
Yes. That's awesome. Front row seats to go see the Tar Heels.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful, Karen. All right. So from that thing, there was also a situation. I love one of my favorite stories in the book is about you at Duke Power. You're working at Duke Power, and at one point you end up seeing what your coworker's paycheck was. Can you go over that?
Yes. I was hired by Duke Power. My first when I graduated from UNC, my first job, and I was reporting to a supervisor or a manager, and he hired a man, and he said, "Can you train him?" Because I was considered the top of the department. And I said, "Yes, I can." And he assigned him to me. And I worked for about a month with him. And then I got a paycheck handed to me. We got monthly paychecks. So I had a check put on my desk, and I just opened it because I thought it was my check. And it was his check. And he didn't have any experience. He just graduated from college. He didn't have any experience. And I saw that check and looked at how much more he was making than me. And I went to my supervisor and asked him why. And he said, "Oh, he's a male. He's married. He's got children coming along. We must pay men more than women."
Wow. Well, the rest of that story is also amazing. You leave and go get a graduate degree from Wake Forest. Was it was it one master's or two masters?
Well, it was one master's, but I also became, it was a master's, and then I became a CPA.
Okay.
And worked for a CPA firm.
You came back to Duke Power with your CPA and your master's, and then what happened?
I was made the first female vice president.
That story to me, again, Karen, I don't know how you would realize this would affect a lot of people. You are flying kites with your dad in Kannapolis, North Carolina, living poor, and then you end up, where they're telling you can't work in this place. Karen, I have a question. We've had several conversations. You're smarter than most people. When we have conversations, it's very clear that there is a cognition of mathematics that is beyond what most human beings can do when I talk to you. Did you have a realization of this in high school, that you were just really good at some of this stuff?
I felt that I was really good at math.
Yeah.
And I majored in applied mathematics.
Okay.
At University of North Carolina.
Have you ever gone any further into like quantum mechanics, physics, or anything like that? Have you ever, like astronomy, did you ever dig deeper into like some mathematical computation like that? No? No,
I was fascinated. I took astronomy in college, and I took physics in college.
Yeah.
And I made a decision. I considered switching my major to physics.
Okay.
But I stayed with applied mathematics.
This is a really interesting thing that happened. So Jim Simons over at the Medallion Fund, who's one of the most successful hedge fund traders of all time, he hires mathematicians and physicists in order to do his mathematical modeling. Fisher Black has a degree in mathematics, and he was one of the Nobel Prize winners for the Black-Scholes model. And then also Charlie Munger has his undergraduate, I believe, is also in physics. A lot of people, and we also had Sergey Daida on here, who is a theoretical physicist. He tells me that he gets offers from financial institutions to come work it there. He has a PhD in physics. He gets offers from financial institutions. There seems to be a crossover because I think people in physics are able to model things in finance better than finance people can model things in finance, if that makes any sense. Just like we can model.
Well,
go ahead.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there seems to be a massive crossover. But people people who study astronomy, we can model when I say we. I'm an amateur astronomer. We can model when eclipses are. We can predict eclipses all the way out to millions of years, right? Because we can put these three-dimensional models together. And so that's one of the reasons why Sergey was telling me, he was like, my ability to program and to build these models is the reason why some of these financial firms want me. But it is really inspiring to hear. You grew up poor, and then next thing you know, you're going to UNC when women weren't going there. You paid your whole way there. You saw that your male employee was making more than you, and you go get a master's, a CPA, you come back and you become the vice president of that same company. It's just a really, really inspiring story.
Yeah. Yes. And then I got bored with my job, and I had a job offer in Tennessee and a job offer in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And I picked the job in Tennessee.
So that's how you ended up moving to Nashville. You live in Brentwood now? Is that where you live?
Yes, I do.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, I have a question. We're going to go back to trading. And speaking of trading, somebody who also looks up to you is from Liz and Jenny, from the Liz and Jenny show. It's Jenny Andrews. And Jenny had a question for you. She said something that always stuck with us. She said, once I have a profit, I never want to give it back. What percent of the credit will she close a winning trade at? I know at TT we say close at 50%. Does she always close for that or less? So she has a trading question for you. So for those of you who are not familiar with the way a stock option, whenever we say puts or selling options, I just want you to think home insurance. Just think home insurance or car insurance. Karen sells you home insurance. Okay, so if the insurer sells you home insurance, you pay them a premium, and as long as your car or your home doesn't break down, they keep the premium, right? But you still pay every year that premium. That's what it's like selling puts. When I sell puts to someone, I'm insuring basically for every put contract I sell, I'm insuring 100 shares of their stock at a certain strike price. Just think whenever you hear stock options, just think selling insurance. Okay. Now, Karen, you're in a situation where you'll sell some insurance, you'll sell puts, and then you'll collect. We'll just say in this instance, just to make it nice and round, you collect $10 for a contract. At that point, how much money? When they're asking when you close, do you what percentage of credit will she close the winning trade at? Do you have an answer to that, or do you let them expire? You go to expiration?
I don't close them.
You don't
let them expire, or either close them at a nickel.
Close them at a nickel. Okay, so you gamma risk is not something that you worry about because you trade such low delta.
No.
Okay.
I don't worry about delta or gamma.
Okay, so just for those of you who are trying to follow along, you will pay a premium. You guys know the higher your deductible is, the less your premium is, right? Well, it's the same way in stock options. The lower the strike price is, meaning the point at which you are now on the hook. So let's say you have a XYZ stocks at $100 a share. If you're selling stock options at $50 a share, you're going to receive a very low premium. But if you sell it at $90 a share, you're going to receive a much higher premium because you're taking a lot more risk. That's how insurance companies look at it as well. The higher the deductible, the less risk they're taking, and therefore the less premium you have. The actuary tables that they use for insurance is exactly the same thing as what we use for stock options. It's exactly the same thing. We use the Black-Scholes model, which was a model that was created in the 70s, and then Fisher Black and Myron Scholes won the Nobel Prize for it in 1992, 94, somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly, but that's how stock options are priced. You as a retail trader, and I'm talking about you in the audience, you can't just sell insurance. I mean, unless you go work for an insurance company, then you can. But like, you can't be the house in a casino. But you can bet at a casino, and you can buy insurance, but it's difficult to sell it unless you're actually the seller. Trading stock options actually gives you the ability to take that edge, and that's the reason why a lot of people do sell stock options instead of buying them. All right, so that's interesting. So you just let it go. If you have a winning trade, you just let it go to expiration. You collect all the credit.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. We're going to move forward to the idea of the legal battle that happened in 2018. So you're trading. So I just want to make sure the SEC complaint that was against you, and I've read this, and you guys can go look this up if you want. The SEC complaint was basically that in 2014, I believe, there was a month, and I think I remember experiencing this. If I'm wrong, and if it's 2015 or 2016, please let me know. But there was a month where a bunch of your positions were tested, and you do the thing that all stock option traders do. You rolled the position forward. Rolling the position forward is not a common thing we do. It's the most common thing we do. It is the equivalent of saying, like, in order to go forward in a car, you push the gas pedal down. That's the equivalent of, in order to deal with a losing position in stock options, you roll the position forward. In fact, it's the only thing we do. We roll it out and up, or out and down, or we sell something against it. That's always what we do. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission looked at you rolling these things forward. Again, I have probably rolled 10,000 contracts over the last 10 years. I probably roll 10,000 individual contracts forward in the last 10 years. Rolling forward is not an uncommon thing. It is simply the most common thing. The Securities and Exchange Commission, they looked at you rolling forward, and what did they say about, how did they interpret you rolling these positions forward?
They charged me with fraud. They said that I wasn't completing the task that was in front of me. They charged me with fraud. I was moved at church yesterday, and I have they put a gag order on me.
Yeah.
I am breaking that gag order.
Okay. Got it.
With you.
Okay. Got it. And this is Mary Jo White. This is this head of the Security and Exchange Commission at this point is Mary Jo White. It is the same Mary Jo White that went after Martha Stewart and the same Mary Jo White that went after Mark Cuban. Yes. Successfully went after Martha Stewart, unsuccessfully went after Mark Cuban. And she put out a letter. She put out a letter talking about the types of prosecution she was looking for. And you got a hold of that letter. What did it say?
It said, we're going after large investment companies. They have their own in-house attorneys. We're having a lot of trouble with them. Go after smaller companies because they can't fight us.
And so she knew that they knew you couldn't fight them. You do not have at your hedge fund, you did not have in-house legal counsel. So you knew that wasn't going to be a possibility. That's why you think they chose you.
Well, and they entered my company 2 weeks later. They were from Atlanta, and they didn't understand what a call and a put were, but they came after me.
So this is another thing. So you when you were reading the process, because I'm reading it as a stock option trader, it's very clear to me what you were doing. The idea that it was nefarious is like, it literally, it's the equivalent of saying, in order to make your bicycle go faster, you push the pedals down, and then therefore that's fraud. Like that's the equivalent of what the government's saying, and it doesn't make any sense because they just don't understand how that form of trading works. Now, what happened was you can show a loss on paper, you will show like a P&L loss, or your net lick will actually go down, but because the contracts haven't closed, that money is not realized yet, or it can be realized. I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Your net liquidity as far as your account is, and this goes for every account, this goes for even for like if you just trade stocks or whatever, is if your entire portfolio was liquidated at mid-price, this is how much your portfolio would be worth. So in months where you actually showed a negative P&L, you guys were still taking money out in order to pay the yourselves and to pay Just Hope International, the charity. Is that correct?
No, we weren't paying Just Hope International anything.
Okay.
We were paying, I had employees, so I needed to pay the salaries.
Got it.
We were protecting our investors with rolling them forward.
Yes.
We weren't doing anything that gave the equivalent of fraud.
And let me just reiterate this for the third time. In the year 2014, you did return money to your investors. They received a profit. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, absolutely. So again, the government is in. And by the way, this is the crazy part: is that the government knew that you had made money for your investors and still charged you with fraud. That's the part. It's not like the Bernie Madoff situation, because that's the word some of the people in the media were using. They were actually saying that Bernie Madoff was legitimately stealing. He wasn't even putting these things in the investments that he said he was putting in. You actually returned real money to your investors during the years in question.
I did.
That, to me, that is beyond reproach and one of the most frustrating parts of this. The other part that is incredibly frustrating about this situation, and you guys can look it up, there are two incredibly irresponsible news media articles. And I know if I come off as biased, but the reason why I'm biased is because I have an expertise in this, and that's why I just very, very upsetting. There's two, one from The Street and one from Forbes. The one from Forbes is incredibly irresponsible. They basically write in there, it's very clear he did not read the SEC complaint, and he goes in there and speculates about the massive amount of money that you lost in the first quarter of 2014, and then starts coming up with excuses on how you committed fraud. And at no point in there does it talk about how rolling is a normal thing that happens, or the fact that you did, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, you made money for your investors in the financial year that is in question. They don't say that at all. There's another one, and here's the worst part about it. Please, I would encourage you guys to do this just to show you how corrupt financial media is. I want to show you guys something. Pause this video, and I want you to look up the Forbes article about Karen, and you can skip down to the bottom. And what you'll see at the bottom is an advertisement for another options selling course. It is so unbelievably ridiculous to me that Forbes would allow something like that to happen. And just so we're clear, Karen sells options. This option course was about buying options. What this course in this specific course was trying to do that. So what Karen was doing by making profit by selling options was so antithetical to what they were doing. They actually sponsored an article calling her a criminal. In which case they state things that are factually not true, and Forbes has never rescinded anything that they've written about this, even though it is factually untrue what they wrote. So I thought that was, again, I invite you guys to watch it. Whatever you read in the article, read the bottom. Read the fact that this is sponsored information, and this is the most prominent article on Karen. So I think something like that is extremely irresponsible. But I keep bringing it up, and I'll keep bringing it up over and over again. 2014, 2015, 2016, you did return a profit for your investors.
And the Tennessean, the man that was running Just Hope International.
Yeah.
I was trading, and we were working in the same office.
Yeah.
So I kept up with Just Hope International, but I needed to put my time toward trading. And he heard of the Tennessean putting out an article about me, and the SEC sent that article to them. He went to the paper the day before it was published and told the editor that they had errors in their
reporting
publication.
Yeah.
And they laughed at him. I have never read the Tennessean since that day.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it is one because, you know, I actually have had previous guests on here. One of them had 19 federal charges against him, and he beat all of them. It's one of these things where, like, you just imagine if the federal government's going to come after you, you must be guilty. Now, you did. Two things I want to go before I skip to the end of it. Now, initially, you have an audit, and you think everything's okay, right? The SEC comes to you, and it's the CFTC that also comes and asks you for an audit.
CFTC audited me prior to that.
Okay.
And they didn't find anything that I was doing wrong.
Okay.
They found a report that I wasn't publishing monthly, and they charged me for that report. But They didn't find anything that I was doing wrong in my trading.
And just so we're clear, CFTC would have an expertise over stock options. The SEC would not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was trading directly with the Chicago board. Yeah. I wasn't trading with the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the equivalent of the FBI trying to try a case in Africa. Like, this is not their jurisdiction. Security and Exchange Commission now, overall jurisdiction, do they deal with all equities? Yes, and derivatives? Yes, but their expertise is equities. It is not derivatives. There are other agencies that deal with derivatives, and the SEC making these charges about things that they don't understand is essentially what happened. Or maybe, honestly, maybe they do understand. They were just they just figured that they could trick a jury into believing what they were saying, or what's more likely is that they knew they had an unlimited budget and you didn't, and they could figure that they could just wear you down.
And under the Trump administration, the heads of the SEC were interviewed, and they were asked an options question, and the heads of the SEC said, "We can't answer that question. You have to ask the Chicago board."
Yeah, CBO, Chicago Board of Option Exchange.
Yes,
CBO. Yeah, which is beautiful. Okay, that's good. I just want to point that out because, Karen, here's the thing. I don't think you understand how this other narrative about you has been pervaded, and you've never really spoken about it. So everybody just kind of assumes this woman was making a bunch of money because it was fraud. Now, I knew it wasn't fraud because I was getting 36% returns. I also knew how you could lose money. There is a way you can lose money. We've definitely had struggling years, but I've been very open and honest about why those things happen because we take a lot of risk. And that's the thing. For those people who like Bitcoin and you guys are like, you like your implied volatility at 200%, hey, get into stock options. We can show you some, and you don't have to pay anywhere near as much in fees. But it's not that it can't go down. But in these cases, they were trying to charge you with fraud when there was no fraud. The idea of you rolling things forward.
And they didn't find me guilty of fraud.
Yeah.
They told me in the gag order that I have to say I was neither found guilty or innocent.
Right. Yeah.
Fraud.
Okay.
I didn't commit fraud.
Okay, so just also now this is the other part I guess I don't understand. Why is it that you were not allowed to speak at your own defense when you went to that courtroom in 2018 with the Security and Exchange Commission?
The judge pointed her finger at me and she said, "You are not allowed to open your mouth in my courtroom." And then my attorney got up to speak, and she said, she stopped her and she said, "I'm not interested in what you're saying. You can sit down too." And then the SEC man got up and lied about me.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible. That's pretty awesome. I mean, again, for those of you who have doubts, one more time, she made money for investors that year. So for anybody who wants to say that this was fraud, please take your finger and point to the victim, because her investors all made money. So I'm confused who the victim was in this situation. So let's keep going. We'll come back to that a little bit. Makes my blood boil. Normally in these situations, like when I had Vegas Dave on here, I'm asking questions because I legitimately do not understand anything about his charges, and I legitimately do not understand anything about sports betting. I don't. I'm not a sports. I know a lot about sports, but not about sports betting. In this case, I've spent the last 10 years of my life making a living. Karen, I got a car outside that basically you bought. You know, like the last 10 years of my, 2013.
Wow.
So the last 9 years of my life making a living from selling stock options. So I knew I knew exactly what it is that you were doing. And when I read those charges, I was like, oh, no, it's just like somebody needs to tap this, this prosecutor on the shoulder and just be like, let me show you real quick. Let me show you one of 10,000 videos on the internet that show you how to roll stock option forward and how this is not a fraudulent act. And I kept thinking, this is going to solve itself. Someone rational is going to step in. But the reality of the situation is derivatives are complex. That's the reason why a lot of people don't trade stock options, because it's complicated. And these people are attorneys. They don't understand how these things work. They don't understand Black-Scholes model and normal distribution. They don't understand negative or positive kurtosis. They don't understand fat tails. They don't understand any of this stuff. They don't understand implied volatility. They don't understand reversion to the mean. They don't understand any of these mathematical concepts. And so when you do this to them, they're just like, well, because we don't understand it, you committed fraud. Because we don't understand, you committed fraud. That's essentially what they said. And we have,
and they didn't. They never found me guilty or innocent,
right,
of that comment. I just couldn't afford to fight them.
Yeah,
because I was putting most of my money in the foundation,
right,
Just Hope Foundation, and paying for everything that I had accomplished for Just Hope through the foundation.
So yeah, I guess that's the other question here is like, it's a $242 million hedge fund. Even if you make 10% on that, it's $24 million. So it would seem like you would have the money to fight the SEC on some level, but you're saying that the majority of your profit, I know at least 50% of your profits went to Just Hope. Is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
It did.
And then the rest of it, you're saying it was not enough, or you didn't think it was enough to fight, or you just felt like in this situation, you would just rather trade for yourself?
No, I made the rest of my employees rich.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Wow. I mean, this is a pretty deep story, man. This is like, I cannot express to you, if you've ever had a good friend and you know someone's lying about them and you get really angry. And I didn't even know Karen that well back in 2018. I didn't even meet her until 2019, and I was angry about this story. And when I met her and we had these conversations, then it was just one of these things that was, very upsetting. Now let's go back to this. You currently cannot practice as a CPA under the terms of the agreement, and you cannot trade for other people. Is that correct?
Yes, that's I can't practice as a CPA I've retired as a CPA.
Copy.
But I can't trade for anybody else.
Got it.
They banned me from trading for life for other people.
Okay, so somebody you and I are a big fan of, and he is going to be a future guest on the show, is Anthony Battista, the Bat, Tony Battista. We're going to have him on here pretty soon. He has a couple of questions for you also. First one is, do you regret stepping out from the shadows all those years ago and having your story told? Do you think that if you hadn't gone on Tasty Trade and everyone knew you as Karen Supertrader, do you think the Security and Exchange Commission would have come after you, or do you think they came after you because of the notoriety?
I think they came after me because of the notoriety and how much money I was making.
Yeah.
But
Karen, I think
it didn't go into my pocket.
Karen, I think you threatened a lot of financial institutions. I really think you do. Like what for those of you who don't know, you guys hear these big numbers with hedge funds. These are institutional traders. These people have massive infrastructure behind them that allows them to acquire assets under AUM, assets under management, and then they take very, very little risk, and then they make these bets. These hedge fund makes bets. For someone to do this completely as a retail trader, you were using a retail platform to trade. Is that correct?
Yes, I was.
You Thinkorswim?
Tasty Works and
Thinkorswim.
I started
with Thinkorswim.
Thinkorswim.
Okay, so just so we're clear, this is also something that does not happen for a hedge fund. An institutional hedge fund is never going to use Thinkorswim. They're never going to use Tasty Works in order to make their trades. Because the technology for retail traders is so fantastic, thanks to Tom Sosnoff, that's the reason why she was able to do this. What she did was next to impossible. Like it is incredible from the retail side for her to be able to do this was just absolutely incredible for her to pull this off. A unicorn. I can't think of another example. In fact, I talked to Tom. I don't think there is another example of somebody doing this from strictly the retail side, not the institutional side. And like you said before, go ahead.
May I make a statement?
Please.
I got out of bed January 2007, and I know I'm a Christian, and I know I was being called by God. And I was a vice president of a company here. I made a lot of money, but I gave all that up. And I said, I'm going to the deep end of the pool and I'm going to jump. I got up at 3:00 in the morning and said this to the Lord, I'm going to the deep end of the pool and I'm going to jump. And if you don't catch me, I'll drown because I can't swim.
Yeah.
And in italics in the book, he caught me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I remember reading that part.
And I've worked all over the world. I learn more from people than I teach them.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us have learned a lot from you. I spend pretty much all my free time doing charity work, and a lot of that was inspired by you. I work for a domestic abuse charity.
God bless you.
Appreciate it. So a couple more things, and then I want to get into the charitable work that you do because it is above and beyond. Let's talk about this. Bat has another question. You've already answered this, but I'm going to ask it. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again because we get these haters on TikTok and these haters on YouTube. I'm going to keep asking this question over and over again. Okay. After the case, you said, the question he had was, before the SEC investigation, had any original investors lost any money with you?
No.
One more time. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again because I know there's going to be these naysayers that come on YouTube and leave comments on there or my TikTok or whatever. The reality of the situation is she lost no money for her investors up until the point where you had to get rid of the fund, and we'll talk about that once you had the agreement with the SEC. You had to give up the fund. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you had not lost any money for any investors. Please explain to me how that's fraud. So let's keep going here.
And I retired. Because I knew the SEC was terminating me.
Yeah.
So I retired instead.
Beautiful. Okay. Another thing from Bat. The question I get most is, quote, is Karen still trading? And if so, what similar strategies is she using? Also, if I want to manage money, what regulatory flags do I need to watch out for? And is it even possible to manage an options portfolio in the hedge fund space? So are you still trading now?
I am still trading now.
And my audience is a lot of my audience is educated with stock options. Could you just explain, be real technical, what is it that you're doing now?
I trade SPX only.
Mm-hmm.
And I trade the way I always used to trade. But I do a spread now.
So $50 wide, and you're trying to collect a certain amount of money.
$50 wide.
Okay, now you're trying to collect a certain amount of money based on where the VIX is. Is that correct?
No, I pay no attention to the VIX.
Okay.
I'm just trading safely.
Okay, so just go a couple things, because one of the things they say in the Forbes article is that they were very distressed about the fact that you don't look at delta. And you are aware of what delta is. You know what gamma is. You just don't use it.
I'm aware of what delta is.
Yes, but the problem was you don't use it for directional risk, because the way you explained to me is you were looking for a certain amount of premium, and you would move up or down depending on how you got that premium. Again, for those of you lay people here who don't understand what we're talking about, when you sell a spread, the closer you come to in the money, the higher the premium you collect is. Just like with an insurance, remember, think insurance contract. The lower the deductible, the higher the insurance contract. The further away you go, the lower the insurance contract. You're looking for a certain dollar. I remember in the summer of 2019, it was like $250 or $350 a spread is what you were looking for. So whatever that ended up being, whatever delta that was the where you put your spread. And you doing $50 wide spreads in SPX, is that correct?
I am trading a different way. I've made money every month, but I have some contracts in the money, but I move those because the market has just gone up.
Right.
And I have those funds in the money, but I take good care of them, and I move them down and move them down and move them down and move them down.
Okay, so so when you move them down, you're rolling them out and moving them down?
I'm rolling them out.
Okay.
And moving them
if they're in the money, though, you have to
I don't lose money.
Right, but if you're in the money, though, you have to pay a credit in order to do that. So how is it that you're able to roll them out and move them down? Do you make them wider?
I rolled one down today, and I moved it down and made and put out a 200-point variant to make up the loss.
So you went from $50 wide to 200 points wide?
No.
Okay.
I put extra points. I put extra money.
Oh, you sold more contracts.
Oh, but I sold contracts.
Okay, so
But I put them 200 points wide on both sides.
Wait, 200 points wide?
Made up the money.
You're talking about 200 points below the market? Your
Yes.
short strike is 200 points below the market. So you rolled your positions forward and then sold additional contracts to make up whatever your shortfall was when you sold it forward. So if you rolled it forward and you had to pay a dollar debit, you sold contracts, additional contracts. So you put more risk on in order to. Got it. I understand. All right, it makes sense.
But I safely put more risk on. I'm 200 points out. I'm 300 points out on the put side, and I'm 200 points out on the call side.
Okay, so you're selling calls also.
And for next week.
Let me ask you something. Were you selling call spreads before this down move, or is this call spread something you're doing in order to make additional to make up for the credits?
I never.
You don't sell calls normally.
Sell call spreads, but I'm doing it now.
Okay.
But I'm doing it safely.
So
to
what
make up?
What? How far out are your expirations for these call spreads and these extra put spreads that you're putting on?
1 week or 2 weeks.
Okay, that's as far as you go out. That's what I've been doing too. When I sell call spreads, whenever my positions are tested, I'll sell call spreads above the position.
Yes.
But they'll only like 8 days out as probably as far as I'll go. Here's the other thing. Have you ever? This is another thing I've been doing. Whenever stocks on it, or when the SPY has a big dip, I buy a bunch of stock. Do you ever do that?
You buy a bunch of stock?
Yeah, I buy SPY. And the reason why is
Oh.
because I don't have to wait for it to be right. It can be right 10 years from now. Like, that's the reason why. And then I'll sell calls above it. I'll do basically cover call strategy, which is the same risk profile as selling more puts. But the difference is, in this case, if my calls expire, I made money, and the stock just remains forever. I don't have to roll it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of things to do with my time.
Right.
So I don't trade every day.
Yeah.
And I don't look at the stock market until the day I have expiring stock.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, SPX.
So you don't do these rolls when they're in the money until the day of expiration? Like one TTS?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's when you do your roll. So you'll roll it out, whatever you end up having to pay when you roll, because this is a distressed position, you'll make that money up by selling further contracts further, like 200 points down.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, I didn't understand. It's the first time I've heard you explain that, Karen. That's beautiful. Okay, now I understand a little bit better. Okay. Okay, so that's it. And then the other thing is, do you think it's possible, if you want to manage money, what regulatory flags do I need to watch out for? Is it even possible to manage an options portfolio in the hedge fund space right now? Do you think that's possible?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because managing options at the hedge fund level, you have to answer that question.
Yeah. And I may very well have to answer that question, Karen. All right, awesome. Here we go. So let's get into the philanthropy stuff. You are very close with your church, living out in Brentwood, and the first thing they asked you to do was go to Moscow, right? To go build a church. What was that like?
It opened my heart. It was incredible. The experience that we had, it was I was standing, we dispersed and went out of the building one time when we needed to take a break. And we were encircled, and the police came up and took my passport away from me.
Wow.
And they drove off, having backed up and backed us up into a large field with grasses high. And I didn't ever think I would get my passport back. And I called people that were in charge of different things, and I got my passport back, but after a week.
So you were just stuck in Moscow for a week?
Yeah.
Why did the Moscow police hold your passport? Do you know why? Were they trying to extort? Were trying to get money from you?
They were complaining. People were complaining about that lived around us, that the place was used to be a restaurant.
Are you talking about the church that you guys were building in Moscow?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we stripped everything out of the building,
Mm-hmm.
and we replaced it with all the things that we needed. And we weren't making noise.
Right.
But the people that lived around us complained to the police.
Yeah.
And they came and got my passport.
Well, it's crazy. It's a really interesting description in the book. You then later say you tell your pastor that you're never going to go to Africa, and you end up going directly to Africa. Can you talk about, there's several different trips that you go. The one to Malawi is very interesting to me. Very poor country. and some of the things you did and your interactions with an artist named Elijah.
Well, I went over after I formed Just Hope International. This woman behind me is Malawian. I went over there and had a woman coming up to me, walking down a dirt road, and she just crashed at my feet and was crying and telling me something, but I didn't understand the language. I saw a man living in a mud hut that I knew spoke English, and I called him out, and he interpreted what the woman was saying. And she was crying and telling me that her husband beat her every day. And could I pray for her husband? And I thought, well, why don't you take me to your husband and I'll talk to him about what he's doing to you. But I thought, no, he'll kill me. And I just bent down and wrapped my arms around her and prayed for her.
This seemed to be something you brought up a few times in the book about men being beaten by their wives in Africa.
Men being beaten.
I'm sorry. Husband being. I'm sorry. Wives being beaten by their husbands. Excuse me. Wives being beaten by their husbands. This was a common thing you talked about that happened in Africa. This was a common issue that was going on.
Well, it is. I've met a lot of women who men are up here. Their animals are here. Their children are here, and their wives are just used by them.
Yeah, you mentioned before about them toiling in the fields while the men just sat there and watched.
They are sitting under palm trees drinking palm wine, and they look at their wives with a baby strapped on their back, and they're just bending over, tending the field.
Wow. And you also you talk about Elijah, who was an artist that you met, who was caught for stealing when he was a young boy, and they amputated both of his hands as punishment, and he painted several pictures for you.
I met him when I was in Malawi. I was staying in Lilongwe, which is the capital of Malawi, and I was staying in a apartment that was surrounded by a wall, so that I couldn't see Malawians as they walked by. I was asked by a friend of his real name is Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
I changed his name in the book. His name is Samuel. And I was asked by the person that worked inside if I would go out and see Samuel and see his paintings. And I said, of course I will. And Samuel told me the story of how he was stealing food at a young age. He was less than 10 years old at a young age because their family was starving to death. And the police held him down and chopped both of his hands off. He could have died, but he was raised, and he said he was painting and holding a brush like this between his two stumps.
Yeah, and there's a photo of this in the there's a photo of this in your book. You have a
Yes.
photo of Samuel, his real name Samuel, but you say Elijah in the book, and then you also requested several paintings from him.
I bought a lot of paintings from him, and he charged me $2 a painting. I sold them for $20 and brought the profits back to him.
Wow.
I haven't seen him in a long time, but he asked me one day what my favorite African animal is. And I told him the giraffe.
Yeah.
And he came back a week later, and I have this over my fireplace. It's my favorite picture, and it's in the book.
They're really good paintings.
He brought me the picture of two giraffes, one of them stretching his legs out and drinking in a pool, and it's hung over my fireplace ever since. And I bought 25, 30 pictures from him, and I paid $2 a picture. And I went with him one day to an art shop and bought all of his art supplies, and it totaled $25.
Wow. Yeah, that was a really touching story for me. I mean, I just couldn't even believe, you just think about any reason to cut a child's hand off under the age of 10. It's just unbelievable. The story is so unbelievable. And you see the photos of him, and it's even more touching that you have in the book. You have photos of all these different stories that are in the book, which is why, forgive me, I know you're a church-going woman. I think for what she did. She knew you were doing this too, all this charity work. And for them to come after you, it's just like at some point, it's not just that you come after that person, you come after that person's works as well, the good works that they do. And then you take that away from the world when you do this, and you do this in a place that was unjust. Please, once again, point to the victim for me. You made money for your investors every year. Point to somebody. Those of you who want to talk shit, let me point to the victim for me. Let me see who that person is. Write that person for me. Okay, let me know who that is. Let's talk about India. You took a trip to India, and that was a really interesting experience that you describe very vividly in the book.
Well, I asked the Lord never to send me back to India, but I say, if that's where you want me to go, that's where I'll go. But the people that lived, I worked in Calcutta, and the people that lived on the streets were thousands and thousands and thousands of people. You could see men pee on the street. And I was clung to, attacked every time I got out of my vehicle and walked down the street. I was just clung to by dozens of people begging me. So it broke my heart. I got out of a cab one day at Mother Teresa's. I was going to see Mother Teresa's tomb that's in that place where is in that place where she lived. And when I stepped out of the cab, I got rushed by many, many people. And when I touched that door where Mother Teresa lived, I was backed off.
As soon as you got to that holy place, Mother Teresa's.
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. Were you doing philanthropy work in India? Is that what was going on?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. What were you guys doing there?
Well, it's one of the first places that I traveled to, and it was with my Rotary Club. I was president of the Rotary Club, and I traveled with a woman that was from India, and we did a lot of work.
Yeah.
When we moved, when we went to India.
Probably the most vivid story of the whole book is the trash heaps in Managua, near Managua in Nicaragua, where you had these people living in, basically, just think about here in the United States, they take all your trash, they put it in a dump, they bury it. These people were living in these trash dumps looking for food, scraps, material to eat and to sell, and you went to visit this. It was a massive, it was described as a hellhole, this massive trash dump in Managua, and you went there to visit.
Well, that was the first place when I officially set up Just Hope International. That was the first place that I traveled to. And I was had a truckload of food brought down from Minnesota and delivered that, had that delivered to the trash dump. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like that again. They lived on the trash dump, and the trash dump was over 5-10 acres. You could see it from the plane that I traveled on. And the everybody that lived on the trash dump, La Churica, the name of that place, chased those trucks, the dump trucks that came on board and came into the facility, and they dumped their trash out. The people were going through that trash, trying to find something to wear, trying to find food. It just touched my heart that I could feed, and I only fed the children once a day, but I fed them very nutritious food. And when I came home after 2 weeks there, I went to bed just, my heart was just soaring. I thought that I did so much for those children. And the next day, the next morning that I woke up, I thought, they're hungry again. I didn't change a thing. So my a purpose in Just Hope International went from a handout to a hand up.
Yeah, and that was the next thing we're going to talk about, toxic charities. You said there's a book called Toxic Charities that like helped you change your mind, and this was the idea of basically like if you just go, if we go to some poor place in Africa and we give them food and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't change what happens. So in Managua, this is the first time you try to help them from an agricultural standpoint be able to get back on their feet. What is it that you guys did there?
I didn't do anything in Managua. I went to Peru.
Oh, that's right. Okay, this is a different part. You went to Peru with the guinea pigs and the goats. Was that it?
Well, it was chickens and guinea pigs. I crossed. I went way up in the country, and the people were forced out of their living facilities by the Shining Path.
Yeah.
And
Shining Path is
they were
Shining Path
Maoist.
Shining Path is a Maoist cult in Peru, for those of you who don't know.
Yes, yes. And they fled from their homes, and the people who didn't flee were killed if they said no to the Shining Path. They were killed or buried alive or whatever they.
I can't think of anything more Maoist than that. That's exactly that's what Mao Zedong did as well.
And I met a person there. He was a preacher, and I just met him by chance, and we started working together. And he took me up to this village high up in the Andes. And I took baby chicks to them. I took guinea pigs to them. I took seed to them. I took fertilizer to them. And I had to cross a river with a pack of guinea pigs on the top of my head.
Yeah.
And the river was fast flowing, and it was up above my knees. And I thought, if I drop these guinea pigs, they're going to drown. So I took each step carefully.
Yeah.
And I made it across the other side of the river. And those people came down, and they were throwing flowers at my feet when I walked into the village. And I've never seen anything like that before.
That's wonderful. So you're helping people get on their feet. Now, the one that we'd heard about, I talked to Liz and Jenny about this briefly, and I didn't understand, was in Sierra Leone, you helping them as pineapple farmers. For a lot of people don't realize, pineapples are, I didn't know this, are a drought-resistant fruit. And so because of that, now we can take the place where it's very, very, you have a drought-heavy place like Malawi in Africa, in Sierra Leone in Africa, and then you're able to grow this cash crop, which then they're able to sell for a profit. Can you talk about that? Again, this is not a handout, it's a hand up that you did for this community in Sierra Leone.
Yes, it was a handout. I bought 5 acres of pineapple plants, and the people of that village came out and dug for me. They planted for me, and I was working with a local man, and that pineapple farm was very, very successful, and they sold the pineapples, and that's increased too. It's increased significantly, and we built a house on that pineapple farm, and people live in that now.
Yeah.
I used to live in it, but I turned it over to people when I left.
So you went to one of the poorest places in Africa, and you figured out a way to give them some economic opportunity, which still stands to this day.
Yes.
Cool.
And I met a woman. I worked with the woman's husband, and I met her just one time shortly. But her husband was taking me to a boat. I had to get into a boat to get to the airport. They planned to build a bridge, but they never built the bridge. So I you had to get in a boat every time you had to go to the airport. And he said they had lost about 3 children during her pregnancy. And they had adopted a baby that was born 3 months early, and the mother died, and they lost that baby after a couple of months. And he said, Auntie Karen, my wife is pregnant again. Will you get her out of that country, out of this country, and place her someplace else?
So you flew this African woman who had, on several cases, had miscarriages to an OBGYN in Nashville. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And he was willing to do this work pro bono.
I raised the money.
Yeah.
And they name little girls 7 days after they're born, and little boys 5 days after they're born. I don't know if that's correct, but we had a event in my house where the baby was going to be named, and we invited a lot of people over, and they were guessing the name of the baby. They in Africa, in Sierra Leone, in Africa, they place the pot around and you put coins in and guess the baby's name.
Yeah.
So people in my house were putting $20, $25 in the pot and guessing the name of the baby.
Yeah.
And we went around several times, and nobody guessed the name of the baby. And that lady stood up and she said, the baby's name is Karen. And I just started crying. And that little girl is 9 years old now.
Wow.
And she is likes math. So there's a bit of me in her too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really touching story, Karen. That's great. Man, it's just a lot of great work. I'd say the majority of the book, if you guys want to pick this book up, which I do recommend you pick it up, it's called The Lamb of Wall Street. You're gonna read a lot about her works. There it is, right there. There it is. There it doesn't go.
That picture on the cover is I'm the 4th woman carrying a bucket
On your head.
I took that picture.
Okay.
In Malawi.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
And I got and the women had to walk over a mile 4 and 5 times a day to get the water out of a dirty river. And when I walked back, I called all the people in from the village, and I announced that I was drilling a well in their village.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of situations where you're helping people help themselves, and I think that's really great. That is the majority of what we talk about in the book. That is terrific. The other thing I want to talk about is a couple of other deals. So there's a lot of people who were traders like you, inspired by you, or they're on Tasty Trade. And then there was a pretty significant thing that happened in all of our lives with the coronavirus. It happened with you as far as your inability to travel and as far as your trading is concerned. Now, I had a rough time with coronavirus. If you have a long portfolio and the market goes down, you're going to have trouble, right? That's just simple mathematics. The market went, I believe the high was 33.58 in March, and then it dropped all the way down to 21.92. I think was the lowest that the SPX got to. Don't quote me on that, but if I'm right, give me credit for it. So during that chart, you don't have to say what how much you lost or how much you made or whatever. But I'm curious, what lessons did you learn from the Corona crash, and did it change any of the way that you trade?
I learned a lot from that crash, and it just made me trade safer and safer. I won't say how much I lost, but I lost a lot through that crash.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you trade smaller? Do you use what percentage of your portfolio do you use before and after? Has that changed at all?
40% of my portfolio.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember when you go back to the Tasty Trade stuff way back in the day, you were using 70% at one point, right? And now we're down. Like I don't use more than 30. Under no circumstance do I use more than 30% of my portfolio, and I'm defined risk, so I don't even use quite 30. If the VIX is below like 15, I'm using like 20% of my account. So I do use Delta and I do use the VIX in order to check stuff, and I do roll stuff out just because I am afraid of gamma risk. Because whenever I think I'm right, I can tell my friends, you want to know I can make Bitcoin crash? You want to see how? I'll just buy some Bitcoin. It'll crash the next day. I promise you. So, I don't even pretend to try to guess to be right. So that's incredible. So you've decided to trade smaller and safer. Is that what you're saying? Do you still do?
I have decided to trade smaller and safer, but I went over to Europe in July.
Yeah.
Germany, Croatia, and Italy. And I paid homage to my father. It's in the epilogue of what my father did. And he never would answer questions that my brother or I asked him. And he was a World War II hero.
Can you talk about I was going to get to this, but this is probably one of the most amazing stories in the book. Your father was one of the American soldiers that actually discovered the Dachau prison camp, where the Holocaust was one of the camps where the Holocaust was happening, much like Auschwitz.
Yes.
Can you talk about your father also had photographs that he had taken from the Dachau camp that are currently in a museum? Can you go over that?
Yes, and my father and 3 other American soldiers, and I found this out just 2 years ago.
After your brother had passed away.
My father died at 61.
Yeah.
So he's been passed away for 50 years. And I found this out through the book and through pictures I had found in my brother's house. My brother passed away 2 years ago, and I found those pictures. And my father and 3 other soldiers dressed up in German uniforms got into the Dachau prison camp and killed all the German soldiers and set every prisoner free.
That's incredible. And you found the photographs of this?
Yes.
And then you have those photographs were then turned over to which museum was it?
The Salisbury Museum. Okay. And the museum at the Dachau prison camp.
You think about like something to be proud of. I mean, that's pretty high up on the list. And what a horrific experience it must have been for your father to actually go. Like from our standpoint, it just seems like the ultimate bravery to actually go in there and just to kill all those Germans, like to dress up like that, to disguise yourself and put yourself at risk. But from his standpoint, I mean, you can imagine once you do that and you've actually killed people, and then you go there and you see the incredible atrocity that had happened at this prison camp. It was something he didn't want to talk about.
Well, he never talked about his service. He was in Europe and Northern Africa for 4 years.
Yeah.
During the war. And he never would answer a single question that my brother or I asked him.
Yeah.
So I was just daddy's little girl to him. And to find out that my father was a World War II hero, I thought I would cry in that Dachau prison camp.
Yeah.
But I just honored him. I was so full of pride and honor. I didn't cry. I just went through that Dachau prison camp and just saw all the atrocities in that camp.
Even though you didn't know this about your father, did you? I mean, your father, you must have been in your early 20s when he passed away.
Yes.
Did you?
I was 22.
Did you take a lot? What did you take from your father?
Well, my father loved me so much, and I just took love from him. He worked all the time. My mother worked all the time. They weren't. One of them worked the first shift, and the other one worked the second shift. So the parents could stay with us. One stayed with us on the first shift, and another one stayed with us on the second shift. And my father worked the third shift. He worked for Cannon Mills, and he was a loom fixer. But I just loved my father, and when he died, I couldn't talk about it for a year.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible story, man. That is really great. When you find out stuff, my grandfather was a professor at Southern Methodist University, and when I find out stuff that he had done, that he never talked to you about, right? It's not the same thing as World War II, but like some of the things when people come and tell you stories about somebody that you've known very well, but you didn't realize that some of the things they were, you always imagine. I always imagine what my dad was like in college, right, at SMU, what he must have been like, because he passed away in 2006, and it was just one of these things that after he passed away, you end up getting these stories that just things that you didn't know, and the story makes a lot of sense afterwards too, Let's talk about this. When UNC contacts you, you're obviously a huge Michael Jordan fan, right? UNC Tar Heel. UNC contacts you. Have you met Michael Jordan?
I have in a Westin hotel. He walked in while I was sitting waiting on somebody.
And he said, "You're Karen Supertrader." Is that what he did?
No.
No, he didn't do that?
That was before I was Karen the Supertrader.
Right. That's incredible. So now, what happens here? What does UNC see, and then what does UNC tell you, and then why did you end up getting the Distinguished Alumni Award?
Well, I went to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
I got my graduate degree at Wake Forest.
Okay.
But I took a lot of courses at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte too.
Okay.
When I was working. They after I quit my job and opened up the Just Hope International and worked there. Worked all over the world for several years. I was nominated for the Distinguished Alumni of the Year award, and they picked me.
And this was because of Just Hope International. That was the reason why they picked you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm well taken care of at every football game, every basketball game.
Let me tell you something. When I go to UT Austin, they make me pay full price. They don't take care of shit. And then they still ask me for money after that. Hook 'em horns.
Well, I am well taken care of.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I go out on the field for football.
Yeah.
And I'm on the court for basketball.
Beautiful. Kenny Smith, Lawrence Taylor, Sam Perkins, they're all smiling somewhere hearing the story.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. All right, so let's go. This has been an incredible story. I hope to have you back on. I would love to have you and Tom on at the same time. Actually, that would be incredible if we did that at some point.
Oh, wow.
That'd be great. Hey, listen, Zoom, it's incredible technology. And hopefully when you come to Las Vegas, we can have you here in studio. last question I want to ask you, and it is from the person who, who we all have in common, who kind of connect us all. It is Sauce Grande himself. Tom Sosnoff has a question for you. And the question is my only question: would she do it again? Would she do it all again, knowing that nothing would change? Would you do everything the same?
I would do it the same way, because I take it now. This book would never have been written if the SEC hadn't come after me. And I was doing ministry on the island of Cyprus for 2.5 years. And Michael Blanton called me. I heard in my heart, tell the story now. And I was trading and had my rental property. I was trading at 10:30 at night because there's an 8-hour time difference. And I had all my house blacked out. Every light was turned off. And I heard a voice, tell the story now. And I pushed back and I thought, somebody's in the house. And it was in my heart, tell the story now. And I didn't know what that meant. And 2 days later, I got a call, and he said, you don't know who I am, but I've heard lots of stories about you. I think a book needs to be written about you. And I said, it was January 2019. And I said, I'm coming home to sell my house at the end of February. Can I meet you? And he said, yes. And the rest is history.
That's awesome. So how long did it take you to write the book?
Took me, it came out November the 9th, 2021.
Yeah.
It took me about a year.
Okay. Amazing. Awesome. Karen, this has been great. There's so many other things we could go over, but I covered all this stuff, and this was really great. Karen, I'm gonna tell you right now, a lot of people had a lot of questions. When you spoke in 2019, when I was telling you Chicago, there's still a lot of things, obviously, you couldn't talk about with the SEC. I'm very happy to give you a platform to tell your side of what happened. In fact, I want to use this podcast for that. You said if the SEC hadn't come after you, you wouldn't read that book. There was something similar that happened to me. It wasn't a legal thing. It was a thing where a person close to me was lying about me. That's why I started this podcast, because I'm not going to let anybody else write a narrative about me anymore. And so that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity for that. And by the way, other people who are watching the show, if this is something else that's going on with you, this is something that I want to get involved with, giving people a platform in order to do that. Karen, I can't thank you enough. For how much you've helped me.
The SEC put a gag order on me, and I'm using my freedom of speech in the Constitution.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the SEC can't tell you that you can't tell people you did make money for your investors those 3 years. Checkmate. So that's pretty much it. So I'm really happy to have you on here. I love the fact that you were able to come on here and tell your side of the story. It was really, really terrific. Hopefully we can have you on again soon. For those of you guys who've been watching the podcast, man, we zig as far as we can zag, guys. You have seen we have a theoretical physicist here. We have an incredible retail hedge fund manager, huge inspirational philanthropist on here with Karen Bruton. Thank you guys for joining us. We have the response I've been getting from you for the last couple episodes is absolutely incredible on TikTok. Once again, guys, this isn't just a TikTok show. Please come check us out on YouTube. And thank you, Karen. Hopefully we can have Karen out here pretty soon. Karen, is there a place that you want people to reach you? Is it just justhopeinternational.org?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Or I can give them my cell phone.
No, we're not
but I
gonna. We're
won't
not.
do
No,
that.
there's no cell phone number over YouTube. We're not doing that one. That's awesome, Karen. Well, that's awesome. We finally a place to look you up. Hopefully we can see you a little bit more. Hopefully you'll do some more interviews after this. We're very interested in a lot of stuff that you have to say. Thank you guys.
And I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. It was one of these funny things, Karen, because when we met the first time, I keep forgetting. This happens to me all the time. People come up, they watch my podcast, and they're talking to me like I know them, and I'm like, I don't know you. Like I've not, but I appreciate you watching all my episodes. And it was like that when I met you. I felt like I knew Karen, right? And then we hit it off after that. So thank you so much for helping me out a lot, helping me understand trading. A lot of what the success I have. Listen, I made 47% last year, so I'm pretty happy about that, and it was directly because of what you taught me. So thank you so much about that. And gentlemen, ladies, hopefully you guys have subscribed. Hopefully you guys share. Hopefully, guys, you like this episode. Please tell your friends about it, and we will see you all next week.